Sweet home.
He said it! He said it!
Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, aka the warrior that built this town, and this video we're breaking down everything you need to know about Sweet Home. The Korean Netflix show has a lot to unpack from it, and throughout this video we're going to be discussing the main plot points of the series, its ending, and where things could be going for season 2. Obviously there will be heavy spoilers here, so if you don't want anything ruined then I highly recommend that you check out now. If you're giving in to your deepest desires and staying, then please smash the thumbs up button and make sure you subscribe to the channel for videos like this every day. With that out of the way, thank you for clicking this, now let's get into the breakdown. Okay, so Sweet Home is loosely based on the webtoon of the same name, and the series follows the inhabitants of the Green Home apartment building as they battle against some incredible creatures intent on tearing them limb from limb. Predominantly, we follow Cha Hyun-soo, who has just moved into the area, and see as he unites with the other survivors to take down the monsters. Hyun-soo suffers from depression, and one of the first times that we catch the character, he's contemplating taking his own life. We discover that he was bullied in school, and this made the troubled teen shut himself off from the world. No matter what he did, it just caused more anguish, and after he attempted to stand up to the bully, his father ended up losing his job. This was also the catalyst for the death of his friend's mother, and thus he retreated inside himself, completely cutting himself off from most social interactions. Sadly, his family died due to a car accident, and the grief and loneliness of this have hurt him to the point that he's vowed to end it all. However, those plans quickly change when Korea is racked with a seemingly mysterious disease that randomly turns people into monsters. Now, zombie properties are a dime a dozen at this point, and in regards to Korea, we've had several of them popping up over the last couple of years, including Train to Busan, Kingdom, and #Alive. Where Sweet Home separates itself though is that it operates with monsters rather than zombies, and though many of the plot points are a bit by the numbers, it makes it stand out from the crowd because of this aesthetic. As we journey through the work, we discover that it's not a virus causing these mutations, but rather a curse that is based on an individual's desires. Thus, the thing that ultimately drives a person becomes their downfall, but beyond that, it's not really explained how or why people fall victim to it. However, it does very much hammer home the motif that this show will focus highly on people and what their hearts desire, and though the CGI can be a bit hit and miss, the core plot elements actually do a really good job of fleshing out the key characters so that they're multi-layered. Normally in zombie stories, the archetypes feel very one-dimensional, and whilst that could have been the case here, Sweet Home actually has a lot of people in it with distinct personalities. I absolutely love this idea, as not only was it present in those that we encountered, but the monsters also had individualistic designs, meaning that you could read into a lot of the subtext and see why certain things were the way they were. Every monster that emerges is as twisted as the person that became it, and it really leads to a lot of interesting showdowns. We learn that they are at their most vulnerable during the golden hours, and this means that they can be defeated even if it's extremely difficult. Now, one of the main symptoms of the curse is a nosebleed, in which the infected person gushes blood all over their face. I still have no idea how they did this effect, and it's something that instantly alerts the person on the receiving end of it that something is wrong. Hyun-soo actually comes down with the curse very early on, but unlike the rest of those that we encounter, he doesn't actually transform, and instead he gains what could be seen as immortality. Now, why this is important is because the character actually had a strong desire to end his own life, to the point that he even planned out the day and date that it would happen. However, the curse in some ways reverses that and makes it so that the character cannot die, which allows him to become an asset for the rest of the survivors. These survivors as a whole all represent different stages of life, and we have some that are in love, others that are old, and some shady members who, well, the less said about the better. I'm not going to get into each and every one of them as we'd be here all day, but the characters evolve over time, and a lot of them go on their own arcs in which they become almost polar opposites to how they were at the start of the season. We discover that they survived far longer than a lot of the other peoples in similar situations across the country, and this is because they work as a team really well. Now, as with most supernatural apocalypse shows, we see that the real monsters, mate, it's the bloody humans, and the apartment block is taken over by a bunch of outlaws that will kill you just for looking at them. The group are completely vile, nihilistic, blood-drinking sadists that completely change the dynamics of the latter part of the season. Mirroring this, we see that all the monsters aren't bad, and that there's actually one in the events that helps young Sue. Just a heads up, yeah, I'm probably going to butcher a lot of these names, but I'm trying my best to pronounce them. I did listen to the dub version, and yeah, it's a bit difficult to make some of them out. Anyway, the group managed to ambush the gang and take some of them down, but during this, Hyun-Soo's secret is revealed, and they escort him in an elevator to the roof of the building. However, a big twist comes when one of the forces, a man named Yu Myung, reveals himself as a monster, and he switches sides after viewing the gang as crossing the line. We discover he volunteered for several experiments in order to have the curse removed from him, but that it failed because the monster isn't in him, it is him. He sees himself almost as an apex predator, a wolf in sheep's clothing that exists amongst the humans and will strike if pushed into it. He promises not to harm the survivors, but doesn't believe that humans will show him the same courtesy, and that one way or another they will all be wiped out because of evolution. Yu Myung thinks it's impossible for normal people to coexist with the cursed, and that they will try and wipe them out no matter what. This is hammered home by the survivors burning up the vent one that saved Hyun-Soo, and also special military leaflets that are dropped on the property. These offer sanctuary to anyone willing to hand over an infected person, and thus they will be safe from Operation Golden Hour, which involves wiping everything off the map, monsters and humans alike. It really leads to there being a big predicament for the finale, and it becomes clear that Hyun-Soo and Yu Myung are no longer welcome. After Uri has an asthma attack, Sang-wook tries to leave with her, but Yu Myung intervenes and stops them both. Left with little option, Hyun-Soo realizes that he's not good for the camp and agrees to leave with him in order to spare the others. Sang-wook takes Uri outside, but Yu Myung goes fully off the deep end and mercilessly shoots not only the pair, but also indiscriminately at the other survivors. As we know, Yu Myung is invincible, and this pushes Hyun-Soo into embracing his monster side, which leads to him growing a gigantic wing arm laced with spikes. Traditionally in anime, half men, half bird creatures represent someone who is walking the line between humanity and being a beast. I love this scene, and seeing him take down the villain to a Final Fantasy-esque heart-pumping moment I thought was absolutely amazing. Do-Sik arrives and embraces him, which allows the character to return back to normal, but he's completely broken by what he's been through. I think the line "it's not your fault" has a lot of significance here, as Hyun-Soo blames himself not only for his family's death, but also the ones that Yu Myung caused by possessing other characters and so on. However, this "it's not your fault" line reminds us that all the things that he blames himself for aren't his fault, and well, it's quite a touching moment. Now outside, Sang-wook and Uri pass away holding each other's hands, which too feels like one of the perfect ways for them to close out their arc. It isn't over for one of the characters, but we'll discuss this more in a bit, and Hyun-Soo wakes up looking more like how he did in the flash forward that kickstarted episode 1. The character has complete amnesia and can't remember Do-Sik or the events that transpired. We join Mr. Ran, who throughout the latter part of the series was digging a tunnel, and unfortunately the character passes away in his sleep. However, the group uncover the door that he was trying to locate, and this provides them with an escape in the end. Unfortunately, things aren't over though, and Yu Myung slides out of the corpse that he had possessed, and he takes the outlaw's truck and escapes. The military arrives and demand that the infected are handed over, and though they don't initially fire, they're soon given cause to after the last outlaw sets off a booby trap in the tunnels. The survivors flee there, and Hyun-Soo decides to face the military head on, which brings everything full circle from the scene in the opening. Hyun-Soo heads into a barrage of bullets as the rest of the group make their way into the tunnels in order to escape. Though they initially become lost, after a little rescue dog Bomb arrives, he leads them to the outside, which allows them to finally leave the area. Now they are surrounded by soldiers, and though this could be seen as a rescue, I actually have a different theory about what's going on. Now clearly the curse has ravaged a lot of things, and I think that the survivors will be forced to join the military or participate in their experiments. I think season 2 will definitely open up the rest of the country, and from this finale I got a lot of Resident Evil vibes here, with it hinting to me at least that the season will be set in the city rather than just one key location. I'll talk about the deal that Yae makes in just a bit, as I think that ties heavily in with Hyun-Soo's fate, but yeah, there's a lot of things going on here. Now an interesting thing that happens is that we actually see Wan-Huk remain behind in the apartment building, and though he would likely die due to the bombardment, the character has a nosebleed, indicating that he's become a monster and will survive this encounter. However, if he doesn't, and this is the last time that we see the character, it also feels like somewhat of a fitting end for him. Throughout the season, many people viewed him as having no empathy because he was willing to make the tough choices in order to save the group. However, I actually think that he's the complete opposite and understands that everything must be sacrificed in order for the greater good. This was demonstrated in his actions, in which the character ended his education so that Hyun Yu could continue her training as a ballerina, and I see this moment as a self-quarantine so that he can save them from potentially being gunned down due to him being amongst them. However, I do think that the character will return down the line at some point, and this is why we close in on him with a nosebleed rather than a shot of his body. To me, he seems like a special infectee similar to Hyun-Soo, so he may return looking normal and be more open to working with the other monsters. Now the finale ends with Hyun-Soo's memories coming back to him as he heads towards the military. It initially seems like they took him captive, as we do pick up with him in a military vehicle, but it's quickly revealed that this isn't the case when we see that Sang-wook's driving it. Now there are two possibilities here: either Sang-wook transformed and he became a monster, or you took over him. The first is possible because we know very little about Sang-wook, and though he initially appeared to be a criminal, I think it became more apparent throughout the series that he actually wasn't. There was a lot of talk about spies and so on, and I think that Sang-wook may have actually been one of them. He did pretend to be unable to do a lot of things to hide certain secrets, and this only really seems plausible if there was a greater mission at play that he wasn't willing to discuss. So this could indeed be Sang-wook revealing that he is special ops, and the military could have captured Hyun-Soo, which then allowed him to break the character out for the finale. However, it also could be Yu Myung, and due to Sang-wook's apparent death, this would give him the perfect opportunity to sneak in and take his body. It would also explain the truck and lack of burns, as these were key things that took a lot of focus in the end. Personally, I side more with that theory, as it just seems the most plausible, and he of course would want to save Hyun-Soo because he views them as both being wolves. Wolves operate in packs, and clearly he has big plans for the character. I think that their fates will become interlinked with the key characters and the deal. Now, Yi in the end was forced to join back up with the military, and because she didn't use the beacon, the commanding officer cancelled their deal. However, it looks like they struck a new one that's obviously connected to her fiance. I think she's going to be trying to work back into the good books in order to right the wrongs that the commanding officer sees her as doing. I think that going forward, she will become pivotal in tracking down Hyun-Soo, and whichever theory you take in regards to Sang-wook, the military are clearly aware of him. Yu Myung is wearing one of their outfits, which the Sang-wook we saw die wasn't, so he's probably came face to face with them and is likely now a target. I actually think that the military are trying to weaponize the monsters, and this is why they were experimenting on Yu Myung. They might potentially end up carrying out the same sort of procedures on the survivors, and this will lead to both Hyun-Soo and Yu Myung teaming up against them. Clearly the latter hates them because of what they did to him, and the former could want to take them out in order to save his friends. Now that's all the theories I have for the moment, but I'd of course love to hear yours on the ending and what you took from it. Don't forget that on the 30th of December we're giving away 3 copies of the Lord of the Rings 4K box set to our subscribers. All you have to do to be on the chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the season. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of The Flight Attendant, which will be linked on screen right now. We go over the season and give our theories on where things could be going in the future, so it's definitely worth checking out if you want to know more. With that out of the way, thank you for sitting through the video. I've been Paul, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.